In the earliest days of the world, when the animals and humans still lived close to the Creator, there was a great concern in the heavens. The Creator looked down upon the earth and saw that the creatures, though full of life, were also full of confusion. They quarreled, made foolish decisions, and often found themselves in trouble because they lacked understanding. Moved by compassion, the Creator decided to give the creatures a gift that would help them live wisely and harmoniously. This gift was the pot of wisdom, a magical pot containing all the knowledge, insight, and understanding that could ever be needed. The pot of wisdom was to be entrusted to one of the creatures, who would then share its contents with the world. The Creator thought long and hard about whom to choose for this important task. The elephant was strong and steady, but perhaps too slow to spread the wisdom quickly. The lion was brave, but his temper was fierce. After much deliberation, the Creator finally settled on Anansi, the spider. Anansi was clever and quick, known for his cunning tricks and silver tongue. Surely, the Creator thought, Anansi would know how to spread the wisdom far and wide. And so, the Creator called Anansi to the heavens and handed him the pot of wisdom. Anansi, the Creator said, I entrust this pot of wisdom to you. Share its contents with all the creatures of the earth, so that they may live wisely and in peace. Anansi bowed deeply, hiding the mischievous gleam in his eyes. Thank you, Creator, he said, his voice dripping with sincerity. I will do as you ask. But as Anansi descended back to earth with the pot of wisdom, a greedy thought crept into his mind. Why should I share this wisdom with everyone else? He mused. If I keep it all for myself, I will be the wisest and most powerful creature in the world. No one will ever be able to outsmart me again. And with that, Anansi decided that he would not share the pot of wisdom. Instead, he would hide it where no one else could find it. Anansi, being the trickster he was, knew that hiding the pot of wisdom was no simple task. He needed a place that was not only hidden but also difficult to reach. If the other animals ever suspected him of hoarding the wisdom, they would surely come looking for it. Anansi spent days searching for the perfect hiding spot. He crawled through the dense underbrush, scaled rocky cliffs, and even considered burying the pot deep underground. But none of these places seemed secure enough. Finally, one day, as Anansi was weaving a web high in the branches of a tall tree, an idea struck him. Of course, he exclaimed. I'll hide the pot at the top of the tallest tree in the forest. No one else can climb as well as I can, so no one will ever reach it. Pleased with his plan, Anansi waited until nightfall when the other creatures were asleep. Then, under the cover of darkness, he set out with the pot of wisdom tied to his back. He scurried through the forest, his 8 legs moving swiftly and silently until he reached the tallest and most difficult tree to climb. This is perfect, Anansi thought as he looked up at the towering tree. No one will ever think to look for the pot of wisdom up here. But as Anansi began to climb, he quickly realized that something was wrong. The pot, tied to his back, was heavy and awkward. It kept swinging around, bumping into the tree trunk, and making it difficult for Anansi to hold onto the branches. Frustrated, Anansi stopped to think. Perhaps if I tie the pot to my belly instead, it will be easier to climb, he said to himself. So, he carefully untied the pot from his back and secured it to his belly, hoping this would solve the problem. Just as Anansi was about to resume his climb, he heard a small voice call out from below. Father, what are you doing? Anansi looked down in surprise and saw his younger son, Tikuma, standing at the base of the tree. Tikuma was a curious and intelligent young spider, always eager to learn from his father's clever ways. Anansi's first instinct was to scold Tikuma for sneaking up on him, but then he thought better of it. "Tikuma," Anansi called down, trying to sound casual, "I'm just hiding something very important. But it's proving to be more difficult than I expected." Tikuma, who had always admired his father's cunning, looked up at the pot tied to Anansi's belly. He tilted his head thoughtfully and said, "Father, wouldn't it be easier if you tied the pot to your back instead? That way, your arms would be free to hold onto the branches." Anansi froze. He had been so focused on his plan to hoard the wisdom that he hadn't thought of the simpler solution. How could he, with the entire pot of wisdom in his possession, not have figured this out? And here was Tikuma, without the pot, showing him the obvious. In that moment, Anansi felt a pang of shame. He realized that he had been so consumed by greed that he had forgotten the true nature of wisdom. Wisdom wasn't just about knowledge, it was about understanding and sharing that knowledge with others. Tikuma, in his innocence, had reminded Anansi of this simple truth. Feeling both humbled and enlightened, Anansi knew what he had to do. He carefully climbed down from the tree, untied the pot of wisdom from his belly, and placed it on the ground. He called out to all the creatures of the earth, summoning them to gather around him. The animals came from far and wide: lions, elephants, birds, and even the smallest insects, all curious to hear what Anansi had to say. When they were all assembled, Anansi took a deep breath and began to speak. "My friends," Anansi said, his voice steady but filled with regret, "I was given the pot of wisdom by the Creator, with the task of sharing its contents with you all. But in my greed, I decided to keep it all to myself, believing that this would make me the wisest and most powerful creature in the world. I see now that I was wrong." The animals listened intently, their eyes fixed on Anansi. Even the wind seemed to pause to hear his words. "Wisdom is not something to be hoarded," Anansi continued. "It is meant to be shared, for only through sharing can we all become wise." My son, Tikuma, reminded me of this simple truth today. And so, I will do what I should have done from the beginning. With that, Anansi lifted the lid of the pot of wisdom and tipped it over. A golden light poured out, washing over the assembled creatures and spreading across the earth. The light filled their hearts and minds with understanding, kindness, and the knowledge they needed to live in harmony. As the last rays of light faded, the creatures looked at one another with newfound respect and empathy. They had all been touched by the pot of wisdom, and they knew that their world would never be the same. In the days that followed, the animals found that their lives had changed in many ways. They made better decisions, treated each other with more kindness, and solved their problems with the wisdom they had gained. Even Anansi, though still a trickster at heart, became more thoughtful in his schemes, always considering the impact of his actions on others. Tikuma, for his part, grew up to be just as clever as his father, but with a heart full of kindness and generosity. He became known as the wise spider, always willing to share his knowledge with those who sought it. As for the pot of wisdom, its magic had been spread so thoroughly across the earth that it no longer needed to be kept in one place. The pot itself was returned to the Creator, empty but not forgotten. The wisdom it had contained now lived in the hearts of all creatures, passed down from generation to generation. The tale of Anansi and the pot of wisdom is a timeless reminder that wisdom is not a treasure to be hoarded but a gift to be shared. Anansi's journey from greed to humility teaches us that true wisdom comes not from possessing knowledge but from sharing it with others. In a world where we often seek to outdo one another, this story encourages us to remember that the greatest power lies in cooperation, kindness, and the willingness to learn from those around us, no matter how small or young they may be. The tale also serves as a gentle reminder that even the wisest among us can learn from others. In life, it's not about knowing everything but about being open to learning from everyone. By sharing wisdom and working together, we can all become better, wiser, and more understanding beings.